deeper, for to survive dark, S is not only to crawl out of it, it is to integrate its voice. Imagine the dream where you wander through a forest at night, lost, terrified, and you stumble upon a wolf. The wolf growls, eyes gleaming with a primal fire of hunger. You tremble believing you are about to be devoured, but the wolf does not leap. It circles you waiting. You awake in sweat, and yet something lingers. The knowing that the wolf is not only the predator but your own instinct, your own power, the animal soul that you banished while playing the martyr. This is the secret the empath learns in their brokenness, that their compassion is incomplete without their wolf, that their love becomes distorted, addictive, even enslaved when it denies the raw, untamed energy of the shadow. To awaken as a broken empath is to reclaim the wolf, to let the growl live alongside the tenderness, to feel not only the sorrow of others, but the ferocity of one's own boundaries. What rare power Zen emerges from this? It is the power of presence that does not shatter when the room collapses into grief. It is the ability to stand beside the suicidal, the grieving, the abandoned, and not rush to erase their pain, but to hold it as though, it were sacred fire. For you have sat in that fire yourself. You have been the abandoned one. You have been the castaway on the shore of despair. And when you returned, the flames did not vanish. They settled inside you, becoming a lamp. This is why others confide in you secrets they have told no one. It is not because you are merely kind. It is because your soul has become a terrain that has already housed their nightmare. And so they trust you often without knowing why. The broken empath then awakens the archetype of the wounded healer, but not as sentimentality. Do not confuse sentiment with transformation. The healer does not heal by fixing. The healer heals by embodying. You do not need to repair another's soul. You need only to show them that brokenness can become a doorway, that darkness can become initiation, that despair can become the womb of vision. And yet to reach this state, you must surrender the illusion that you are only light. You must walk hand in hand with your shadow, or else your empathy will remain an unconscious hunger, a way of feeding your need for worth by endlessly rescuing others. Think of the dream of the flood. The waters rise, crashing through heat towns, sweeping away homes, memories, lives. You cling to the branch of a tree, holding on until your arms ache, and suddenly you let go. You expect death, yet the water carries you to a new shore. This is the broken empath's path, the letting go of control, the surrender to the archetypal flood which cleanses not only your illusions but also your compulsions. You are no longer simply the one who absorbs others' emotions like a sponge. You are the one who channels the flood into rivers of wisdom, into art, into prophecy, into deep presence. The rare power is not to feel endlessly but to transmute feeling into meaning. You must also understand that in surviving the darkness, you became a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between the human and the archetypal. Most people flee from the unconscious, fearing its dreams, its chaos, its irrationality. But you have lived there. You have faced nightmares not only at night but in waking life, and so your psyche is fluent in the language of symbols. When someone tells you their dream of falling, you know the taste of that abyss. When someone confesses, they feel as though they are dying. You know that death is an initiation into rebirth. The empath who has been broken is not merely sensitive, they are shamanic. They carry the map of the underworld etched into their bones, but beware. This gift is not without danger. Many empaths remain trapped in the wound, clinging to their identity as the broken one. As though pain were their only mirror, they begin to attract abusers, narcissists, parasites, who sense in them both the softness and the lack of boundaries. And unless the empath awakens their shadow, they will confuse self-destruction for compassion. You must recognize this trap. To awaken the rare power, you must let go of the addiction to suffering. You must cease to define yourself only by how much you can carry for others. True compassion is fierce. It says yes and no with equal sacredness. The awakened empath no longer rescues compulsively. They discern. They protect their temple. And in doing so, their love becomes vast, not diluted. Let me speak to the archetype of the broken vessel. In alchemy, there is a stage called mortificio, the breaking down, the rotting, the dissolution. Only by this corruption can the matter be transformed into gold. Your brokenness was your mortificio. You were shattered, so that the old identity could decay. And in that decay, the seed of the self was planted. Do you see? Your suffering was not meaningless. It was the alchemical operation of your psyche. You have been in the crucible. You have burned. And now what emerges is not the naive empath who feels everything without boundary, but the transmuted empath, the one whose sensitivity has become wisdom, whose fragility has become depth. So when you ask why you survived, when you wonder what purpose your darkness served, I tell you, you survived to become a mirror for humanity's forgotten wound. You survived to embody the truth that empathy without shadow is slavery, but empathy with shadow is liberation. You survived to awaken the rare power of presence that heals not by words but by being. This is not philosophy, it is lift initiation. Each of you who sits here broken is already carrying the seed. The question is whether you will water it with awareness or smother it with fear. And now I ask you to feel into this truth, that the very fracture you once cursed is the doorway to your wholeness, that your tears were the river washing you toward your destiny, that the abyss you thought would consume you has become the ground upon which you now stand. The rare power is not out there. It is not something you must chase. It is already stirring in the marrow of your bones. It is the wolf in your dream, the flood that carried you, the fire that burned you. And when you claim it, when you cease to run from it, you will realize you were never merely an empath. You were always a wounded healer, a bridge, a vessel of transmutation. Broken, yes, but broken open, not broken apart. Do not think, my friends, that the breaking of the empath is merely a personal accident, a private wound irrelevant to the whole. It is in truth a collective drama enacted through your life. Humanity itself is broken, split between its light and its shadow, its ideals and its cruelties. The empath becomes the vessel through which this fracture is most painfully revealed. You carry not only your own sorrows but the unspoken grief of generations, the archetypal wound of the human family. That is why you feel so much more than you can explain. You are porous, yes, but it is more than that. You are chosen as a mirror of the collective unconscious, and your suffering reflects the hidden war within humanity's soul. Yet, in this unbearable vocation lies your rarest gift. For while others deny, repress, or project, you cannot help but feel. You are forced to confront what the world hides from itself. When cruelty pierces you, you cannot simply say it is nothing. When love is withdrawn, you cannot numb yourself as others do. You are compelled to experience the full spectrum of abandonment, shame, and longing. And through this, your soul becomes like a darkened chalice, capable of containing what the collective disowns. That chalice, though heavy, becomes the sacred vessel of transformation. This is why you have been misunderstood. Why? You have been told you are too much, too sensitive, too fragile. For in truth, you are carrying the unbearable on behalf of the world. Now many of you may ask, but why must I suffer so? Why must my path be heavier than others? And I will tell you, archetypal roles are not chosen by preference. The wounded healer does not apply for their vocation. They are seized by it. They are thrown into the underworld so that in surviving they may become the guide. You did not choose to be broken. The darkness broke you. But what you choose now is whether you will remain shattered or with, whether you will let the fracture become a gateway. To cling to victimhood is to stagnate. To accept the archetypal role is to awaken. You cannot erase the past, but you can transmute it into meaning. Consider the symbol of the phoenix. It does not merely endure the fire, it becomes it. The broken empath in awakening must do the same. The flames that once consumed you must now radiate from within you as illumination. This is the power you awaken after surviving darkness, the power to embody paradox. You become both fragile and indestructible, soft and fierce, compassionate and discerning. You learn to sit with grief without drowning, to walk beside rage without being devoured, to hear silence. And know, it speaks. This power cannot be taught in books. It is born only in the crucible of lived suffering, but what of the shadow? For many empaths, brokenness leads to a dangerous temptation. To deny the shadow, to cling desperately to an image of endless goodness, endless giving. You say to yourself, if I am kind enough, if I love enough, I will not be abandoned again. And so you pour yourself out until you are empty, mistaking martyrdom for love. Yet the unconscious cannot be deceived. The denied shadow grows. It emerges in passive resentment, in hiding in compulsions to attach to those who wound you until you integrate it. You remain enslaved to it, Awakening means to face the fact that you are not only the healer, but also the one who longs to destroy. You are not only the comforter, but also the wolf that wants to bite. And in admitting this, you are afraid, for it is not evil to acknowledge the wolf within. It is evil only to repress it, for then it devours you unconsciously. The empath who integrates their shadow becomes whole. They no longer need to be the savior of every wounded soul they encounter. They can say no without guilt. Yes, without fear. They can love without dissolving. They can witness suffering without being consumed. Their compassion becomes authentic, for it is no longer a mask for their need to be loved, but a radiance flowing from their union with the self. This is the rare power to stand in the storm of emotions and remain grounded in one's center, to hold the pain of others without mistaking it for one's own, to offer presence without losing oneself. Let me give you another image. Imagine a dream in which you are in a vast cathedral. The windows are shattered, the altar broken, dust covering the once sacred ground. You wander grieving the ruin, but then a shaft of light pierces through the broken window. And suddenly the ruined cathedral glows with a strange, haunting beauty. You realize the temple was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be broken open so that light could enter where once the walls were sealed. This is your soul. Brokenness has become the aperture through which divine presence flows. Your empathy, wounded though it is, allows you to see beauty in ruins, meaning in sorrow, wholeness in fragments, and yet beware the seduction of endless sacrifice. Many broken empaths remain trapped in the archetype of the victim's savior. Drawn compulsively to those who exploit their softness, they mistake toxicity for destiny, shouts for patient, abuse for love. Why? Because the unconscious compels them to repeat the wound until it is integrated. You are drawn to the abuser not because you are foolish, but because your psyche is attempting to complete the unfinished story of your wound. But if you awaken, you no longer need to repeat. You can see the pattern, name it, and step aside. You are not required to bleed end. Leslie, for others, your wound was not meant to enslave you, but to liberate you. So I ask you, when will you cease to call yourself merely broken? When will you claim the truth that you are broken open, not broken apart? When will you cease to hide your shadow in the name of love, and instead allow love to be strengthened by shadow? When will you recognize that your very survival has already proven your power? For if the darkness intended to destroy you, it has failed. You are here breathing, listening, feeling. That is no small victory. That is evidence that the flame within you cannot be extinguished. And now I will whisper to you a secret. The unconscious has shown me the rare power of the broken empath is not merely the ability to feel. It is the ability to midwife the birth of another's soul. When someone in despair comes to you, you do not rescue them. You do not erase their pain. You stand beside them as the midwife stands beside the woman in labor. You know the contractions are necessary. You know the cries are sacred. You hold space, whisper encouragement. Remind them of the life that is being born. This is the healer's task, not to take away the suffering, but to help transfer it into new life. And only the one who has endured their own labor can do this authentically. Therefore, your survival is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of your vocation. You are called not only to live, but to witness, to guide, to embody. Your tears were not wasted. They became holy water. Your nightmares were not meaningless. They became maps of the underworld. Your silence was not emptiness. It was gestation. And now, as you rise from the ashes of your own darkness, you carry with you the rarest treasure, the wisdom of survival, the strength of integration, the radiance of broken wholeness. You must now begin to see how your survival has been more than endurance. It has been metamorphosis. The empath who has been broken is not the same as the one who was merely sensitive before the fall. A new archetype emerges, a deeper vibration, one that radiates not innocence but initiation. The innocence is gone. Yes, but in its place grows something more resilient. Wisdom rooted in the soil of paradox. And this is what makes your power so rare. Most souls flee from paradox, but you have been forced to live inside it. You know how to hold love and pain at once, how to create, all joy and despair together without tearing apart. You know that light without shadow is blinding, and shadow without light is suffocating. You have tasted both, and so your heart has become a chamber wide enough to hold the duality of existence itself. But what does this mean in your daily life? It means that you are no longer destroyed by your own depth. Once you drowned in it, gasped beneath waves of other people's sorrows, mistaking them for your own. No, having integrated the shadow, you float. You do not carry every grief into your bloodstream, for you have learned the difference between resonance and ownership. When another weeps, you resonate, but you no longer drown. You have become like the oak tree in the storm. The winds whip, the branches sway, but the roots hold fast. That rootedness is born from surviving the abyss. Others cannot touch it, for they have not yet been there. And so they look to you as though you carry a secret they cannot maim. That secret is simply this: you have befriended the darkness instead of fleeing it. But let me take you deeper still. For there is an alchemical truth here. The broken empath becomes a vessel of transformation not only for individuals but for the collective psyche. When you stand in your wholeness, you are not merely helping one person at a time. You are shifting the vibration of the human field. Each time you refuse to collapse into victimhood, each time you honor your shadow as sacred, instead of repressing it, you heal a fragment of humanity's wound. Do you see your personal survival as a cosmic act? The archetype of the wounded healer is not about individual therapy. It is about collective redemption. You embody what humanity itself must learn to stop fleeing from its darkness and instead integrate it. Imagine again a dream. In the dream, you stand on a battlefield. Corpses around you, smoke rising, silence heavy. You are weeping, certain that all is lost. But then you see movement. One small flame still flickering among the ruins. You pick it up, hold it, protect it with your hands. The flame does not die. Instead, it grows, illuminating the battlefield until the corpses vanish, replaced by fields of green. This is the dream of the broken empath that emits devastation. You discover the flame that cannot be extinguished. You carry it guarded until it becomes a new dawn. This flame is not optimal. It is not denial. It is the inner knowing born of survival, that death is not final, that darkness is not absolute, and this knowing is the rarest power. Hope not as sentiment but as initiation. Hope that has been tested in fire and proven indestructible. Yet I must caution you. The awakening of this rare power demands responsibility. If you wield it unconsciously, you may still fall prey to the very patterns you have transcended. You may still confuse empathy with enchantment, compassion with codependency, love with self-erasure. You must remain vigilant, for the old wound always whispers, always tempts you to return to the role of the broken one. But now you know the difference. Now you can hear the whisper and not obey it. Now you can say, I am not here to be consumed, I am here to carry light. And in that moment you reclaim your soul. You see the empire's brokenness often hides a deeper truth, the longing to be seen. You gave endlessly, not only out of love but also out of hope, that by giving enough someone would finally notice you, hold you, cherish you, and when they did not, you shattered. But in the awakening, you learned the radical truth. You were always the one meant to see yourself. You were always the one meant to hold your own shadow, to cherish your own wound, to cradle your own soul. The rare power is not that others finally validate you. It is that you finally validate yourself, shadow, and all that you become your own witness, your own healer, your own lover of the broken fragments that once felt unworthy. This is individuation, the union of the self with the self, the reconciliation of your conscious wound with your unconscious wholeness. Do not underestimate this, for when you see yourself fully without denial, without shame, the world can no longer manipulate you. Narcissists lose their hold. Abusers lose their hooks. Parasites lose their teeth. They cannot control the one who has befriended their own shadow, for manipulation depends upon your fear of what you hide. When you no longer hide, you are free, and freedom is the ultimate gift of the broken empath who awakens. You were once enslaved by your own longing. Now you are liberated by your own integration. And so I ask you again to imagine. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror, cracked, jagged fragments reflecting pieces of your face. You have always hated this mirror, for it shows you distorted, broken, incomplete. But tonight, you decide to look differently. You see that each crack reflects a different part of you, the child, the lover, the victim, the survivor, the wolf, the healer, all are you. And suddenly you realize the cracks do not distort. They reveal. They reveal that you are not one image but many, that your soul is not singular but archetypal, a constellation of fragments forming a greater whole. And in this revelation, the mirror is no longer an enemy, but a sacred map. You bow before it, for it has shown you the truth. You were never broken. You were multifaceted, infinite, eternal. This then is the rare power to live as a walking paradox, to embody both wound and healing, shadow and light, death and rebirth, to be a cathedral whose windows are shattered yet whose ruins glow with divine fire, to be a vessel cracked open yet overflowing with the waters of life, to be an empath who has survived the darkness and therefore carries within them not fragility but the indestructible flame of consciousness. And now, as we approach the close of this journey together, I must bring you into the heart of the mystery. For all that I have said, the brokenness, the shadow, the survival, the flame, these are but steps toward a greater revelation that the rare power of the broken empath is not merely psychological, nor only archetypal, but spiritual. When you descended into darkness and returned, you did not only gain empathy, you touched the numbness, you brushed against the eternal. You discovered that even in the abyss there is presence. You felt the hands of the unseen guiding you through the labyrinth of your own pain, and though you could not name it, then you now know the soul is indestructible. This realization alters everything. Once you feared your fragility, you thought, I am too sensitive. I will never survive in this harsh world. But now you see that your sensitivity is not weakness. It is an antenna. It is the instrument by which you perceive the music beneath the noise, the divine voice beneath the chaos. Your brokenness tuned this instrument. The fracture became the opening through which spirit plays its symphony. And so what you once called curse is in truth initiation into a deeper participation with the cosmos. The empath who has survived is not only human, they are threshold lianal beings standing between worlds carrying tea. He messages of the unconscious into the waking realm. But to carry such messages, you must cultivate reverence. Do not cheapen your gift by giving it away indiscriminately. Do not cast your pearls before those who trample them. You must honor your own soul as sacred ground. The empath who is broken but not awakened spends their life scattering themselves into the void of unworthy hearts. The awakened empath, however, knows that their presence is holy and therefore chooses carefully where to offer it. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. You are no longer desperate to be loved, for you have discovered that love itself lives within you. You are no longer enslaved by the wound, for the wound has become your teacher. You are no longer consumed by the darkness, for you have made the darkness your companion. And from this place your power flows naturally, quietly, irresistibly. Consider the image of the moon. It shines not by its own light but by reflecting the sun. Yet when the night is darkest, it is the moon that guides the traveler. In the same way, you may not always feel like the source of light. You may feel you are only reflecting what you once received. But do not underestimate this. Reflection itself is power. To reflect love, to mirror presence, to embody survival. This is enough to awaken others. Many wander in endless night, and when they see you glowing not in perfection but in luminous brokenness, they remember that survival is possible. They remember that wholeness is not the absence of scars, but the presence of integration in you. They glimpse hope. And hope, my friends, is contagious. But this power must also be grounded. The danger of the empath is to drift, to dissolve, to lose themselves in the collective sea. Therefore, you must root yourself daily. Root yourself in ritual, in stillness, in creative expression. Root yourself in the body, in breath, in the rhythm of the earth. For without grounding, your rare power becomes scattered. Like lightning, without a conductor, you must give your fire form, or else it consumes you. Write, paint, sing, speak, walk among the trees, breathe with intention. Let your empathy move through channels, not bleed endlessly into the void. In this way, your gift becomes sustainable, not destructive. In this way, you honor both your shadow and your light. And let us not forget your awakening is not only for you. It is for those who will come after. You are part of a lineage of broken souls who survived and found meaning. The mystics, the prophets, the healers, the artists, they too were empaths shattered by darkness. They too felt too much, saw too much, carried too much, and yet they transmuted it into visions, into poetry, into wisdom. You walk in their footsteps, and one day others will walk in yours. Your survival will become their map. Your scars will become their compass. Your story will become their strength. Thus the circle continues. Thus the archetype lives on. So I ask you, as you leave this sacred space, will you continue to call yourself broken, or will you call yourself awakened? Will you remain a prisoner of your wound, or will you become its prophet? Will you fear the shadow, or will you embrace it as your ally? The choice is yours, but I tell you this, the moment you decide to honor your wound as initiation, everything changes. The darkness that once terrified you becomes your greatest teacher. The sensitivity that once overwhelmed you becomes your greatest strength. And the rare power that sleeps within you rises not as thunder, not as spectacle, but as the quiet, unshakable presence. Say of one who has walked through fire and returned carrying light. In closing, let me remind you, you are not here to escape pain. You are here to transmute it. You are not here to be unbroken. You are here to be broken open. You are not here to numb yourself against the world. You are here to feel it so deeply that your very presence becomes a salve. And when you doubt this, when the old voices return to tell you that you are too much, too fragile, too broken, remember this. The rare power of the broken empath is not fragility. It is indestructibility disguised as sensitivity. You are still here, and that is proof enough. So walk forth not as victim, not as savior, but as one who has integrated both. Walk forth as cathedral and ruin, as moon and flame, as shadow and light. Walk forth as the awakened empath, broken yet whole, fragile yet indestructible, wounded yet luminous. And wherever you walk, let your presence remind the world. Even in the deepest darkness, the soul survives. Even in the abyss, the flame burns. Even in brokenness, there is power. Rare, fierce, sacred, eternal.